people fake insanity to see what the inmates' living conditions are like. One person did, though, and she was the first female investigative journalist. That person was me. Hello, my name is Nellie Bly. I was born May 5th, 1864, in Burrell Township in Pennsylvania. I was born to Michael and Jane Cochran. My father was a modest mill laborer, and my mother stayed at home. When I was born, my name was Elizabeth Jane Cochran, but I was often called Pinky for my frequency to blush. A lot of people think that I attended school, but I actually only attended boarding school for one term because I had to drop out from lack of funds when my father died. From there, my family and I moved to Pittsburgh. There, I wrote my first article called Lonely Orphan Girl. I submitted it to a paper called the Pittsburgh Dispatch under my initials. The editor there thought that I was a man and would gladly give me the job, but then found out I was a woman and wouldn't give me the job. But then he learned how good a talker I was and decided he would give me a chance. I worked for the Dispatch for a year and then quit. I then traveled to Mexico and spent nearly 6 months there reporting on the working and living conditions of people there. My accounts were later published in one of my books called 6 Months in Mexico. I then moved to New York when I was burdened with publicity from Mexican authorities and spent a few hard months alone with no mail. I then talked my way into Joseph Pulitzer's paper, The New York World. Yes?
Miss Bly, here's your daily cup, and Mr. Pulitzer wants a meeting with you at 4 to talk about your latest article.
Thank you, Claire.
I'll tell him what you said.
My work at the New York World started out with a bang. I immediately started in disguise going into the city's slums, factories, and orphanages. I even got one of my friends to frame me for theft once so I could check out prisons. Joseph Pulitzer then gave me a job. He wanted me to jump overboard and see how fast a crew would respond to an emergency. When I did this successfully, he gave me an even harder assignment. I would have to fake insanity to check out what asylums were like. The asylums treated patients horribly. Buckets of water were poured on them daily, the food and water were horrible, and the cities weren't clean. It was awful. When I left the asylum, I reported what I had seen, and the asylums were shocked. How could a perfectly sane person evade their tests? This is what really earned me a lot of my fame. Yes?
Telegraph for Mr. Verne. He wants to have tea with you at 6.
Ah, lovely. Tell him that will be just wonderful.
Okay.
Mr. Verne is one of my very good friends. When I had heard about his book, Around the World in 80 Days, I wanted to take the trip he mentioned about. I didn't pack very much and traveled on boats, trains, and even some on foot. The journey itself wasn't 80 days. It was 72 days, 11 hours, 14 minutes, and 6 seconds, a new record. This was bested a few months later, though, by another man who did it in 68 days. When I arrived back from my journey, I met Mr. Verne in London. He wanted to meet the amazing person behind this job. Yes.
So sorry to bother you again, Miss Bly, but your niece wanted you to know that she's on her way.
Okay, tell her I'll be ready in about 5 minutes for her.
Okay.
After my journey, I met a man named Robert Seaman. He was 40 years my elder and a multi-millionaire manufacturer. We married and were very happy together until he died a few years later. Then I inherited his company and became the leading female industrialist in the U.S. After a few years, I decided I'd give the job to someone else. I gave it to his next highest-ranking employee and retired. I spent a lot of time with my niece, and one day, we did something together. Someone dropped their baby on my front step and said they wanted him in an orphanage. It was very hard to place, but I had always taken an interest in children's and orphanages, and spent the next few years of my life working to make them a better place for children to grow up. When I was 56, I got a very bad case of pneumonia and was put into St. Mark's Hospital in New York. Unfortunately, I died a few weeks after getting pneumonia on January 27, 1922. I did so many wonderful things in my life that were unexpected and no women had ever done them before. Even though I am no longer here, my legacy still lives on. It's the famous tale of Nellie Bly. Ah, Catherine, how lovely to see you.
Nice to see you too, Auntie. You ready to go?
Yes, always.